All right, everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrow with news and views from the Nefarium on January 29th, 2015. The month has gone by, and as predicted, it's going to be a year for news. I've got a couple articles I want to talk about, and they're unrelated in a certain sense to each other, but I think you're going to hear possible connections. The first one is a story that I pulled off the net called Russia May Create Joint Orbital Station with India and China. This is a short article, and I want you to listen to it. I'm going to read the whole thing because the last sentence is a real clue. And this is datelined Moscow. Quote, Russia is exploring the possibility of a joint manned orbital station with India and China as part of a common strategy, listen carefully, to create technological alliances, and may take up the matter with the two Asian space giants in July. Moscow could propose to China and India to create a joint manned orbital station at the summit of the BRICS emerging economies in Russia's Ufa in July, a document drafted by the expert council at Russia's Military Industrial Commission said today. The experts recommend, quote, working out the possibilities of an international manned project with the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, countries as part of a common strategy of creating technological alliances. Hear that, common strategy of creating technological alliances, unquote, ETAR-TASS reported. We can start this work now and include the issue in the agenda of the BRICS Business Council in Ufa, the document reads. In particular, Russia should make such a proposal to India and China, which have been actively developing their manned space programs, the experts say. And here comes the last sentence. Other prospective areas for further research could be modular rockets using methane as fuel, which is incidentally the old OTRAG, Orbitalraketen und Transport AG, the German firm that had that preserved down in the Congo in Zaire back in the 70s and 80s, using methane as fuel, and also the creation of an aerospace vehicle which could be used in the future to construct a fighter or a bomber of the sixth generation, unquote. Now, that's a giveaway because if you're like me, you suspect that when they make announcements like this, they've already done it or are in the process of doing it, and the announcement really is just a formal public announcement. So in other words, what do we have? We have, I think, what I've been predicting all along, that the BRICS nations are going to have to develop parallel international financial clearing structures, and that's going to require space. And once you said that you're moving your clearing into space-based assets, you've got to protect them. So like it or not, I think what we're looking here is at another step toward the creation of that system of international clearing and an admission that to protect those assets, they're going to have weapons in space. Now, this is interesting because Russia's also come out recently against any further weaponization of space. So the double speak in diplomacy is already going on. I suspect that this is going to go ahead in some form or fashion. It's huge news, and that little clue there about technological alliances, this is going to be the next step in the BRICS bloc strategy, is to pool their technological resources and help each other in order to combat the Western monopoly, the effective monopoly on international financial clearing. Now, the other story I want to talk about is Greece, because we're reaching what I'm calling the Thermopalae-Salamis moment, because Greece has, as you are aware, a history of bucking the big empire. Xerxes and Darius learned the hard way that Greece isn't going to roll over and play dead, and they learned the hard way at the battles of Salamis when Xerxes lost his fleet, and then Thermopylae, of course, when Darius attempted to invade the peninsula and met with a little problem. So the new Greek government is the issue here, and I want to link these stories for you. This is from CNN, and it's a very short paragraph. Quote, the new Greek government has plenty of challenges ahead of it, a towering debt, chronic unemployment, and relations with the rest of Europe. But it also has an urgent security problem. Greece has become an unwitting crossroads for both jihadists trying to reach Iraq and Syria from Europe and for fighters returning home from the Middle East. Greece's long land and maritime boundaries, its proximity to Turkey, the explosion of illegal migration from Syria, and the country's dire financial situation make it an inviting hub for jihadist groups, according to multiple counterterrorism sources. One source close to the Greek intelligence services told CNN there may be some 200 people in the country with links to jihadist groups such as the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, or the Al-Nusra Front, two groups that most Europeans join, unquote. So there we have it. Greece has bucked the empire, meaning the EU, and already we're getting the little signal that terrorism can be expected in Greece. You'll recall the case of French President François Hollande, who made the statement on France Inter, the big radio network in France, that he thought the sanctions against Russia were a bad idea, and as far as France is concerned, they are. Witness those two aircraft carriers, the Mistral-class aircraft carriers that France was attempting to sell to Russia, that has been blocked due to the sanctions. Russia may sue France, and of course the other problem for France is that this whole episode is making France be seen as an unreliable arms exporter. So, and that's a considerable portion of France's industry. So Greece is now bucking the empire. We've reached the Thermopalae-Salamis moment with the election of the Syriza government in Greece. Now, Greece is not talking about pulling out of the EU. What they're talking about is going to the next conference of the EU and presenting trying to negotiate a haircut on their debt. But you know that Chancellor Merkel has basically been advocating this austerity policy, and that's what's hurting Greece and the rest of Southern Europe. So all eyes are on Greece and Europe, in particular Italy, Portugal, and Spain. All right. They're going to watch this very, very closely. Now, if Greece doesn't get its way, we can already predict, I mean, the handwriting's on the wall, terrorism, the terrorist attacks in Paris that followed Hollande's pronouncements. These, as far as I'm concerned, were obviously coming from within the Anglo-American elite, and terrorism was being used as the way to send the message to Hollande to quit singing his own tune and get back with the program. Now, the Greek government obviously is going to have a fallback position in case their demands and requirements are not met. And that's where it's going to get interesting, because I do believe that fallback position might have something to do with the previous Russian invitation that came about a month ago, when Russian President Vladimir Putin invited the European Union to abandon its links with the Anglosphere, with the Anglo-American elite, and join the Eurasian Customs Union. In other words, create a vast type of European Union common market structure all the way from Portugal all the way to Vladivostok, all right, and including the Central Asian republics. This was an offer that Putin made, and I think it was made in all seriousness, even though he realized that probably it had little to no chance of being met with success. I think that offer is playing in the background now of what the Greek government is thinking, because if their fallback position is to pull out of the EU, they might take up Putin's invitation on an individual national basis. And if that's the case, if that's what happens, then Italy, France, and Spain, which also have their own huge problems, might look at that action and contemplate a similar move. So you might be looking over the next year or couple of years at a gradual unraveling of the European Union, unless they are able to negotiate successfully with the rest of the European Union. So this is a huge, huge story, folks. This is one to watch. And again, the terrorism card is being played. I think the playbook is self-evident now that this is what's going on. And I'm going to link another article that also talks about this possibility that Greece is being set up. And again, the timing here is unusual because the Greek government was just elected, and now we have this story about terrorist cells in Greece a few days later. Now, I don't question whether or not there may be terrorist cells in Greece. There probably are. It's the timing. It's the timing of the announcement. In other words, this was the whole card that the Western powers, the Anglosphere, the Anglo-American elite was holding back on, not making any announcement until after the Greek elections. Then they make their announcement. That's clearly sending Greece a message that they need to march in lockstep with the diktats coming out of London and Wall Street and Washington. So this is going to be a very interesting year. Greece is sitting now in the driver's seat. I think we're reaching a Thermopalae-Salamis moment for the EU. And I'm strongly suspecting that even if Greece does get its way or most of its way at the coming conferences in Europe, that ultimately, over the long term, the Greeks are really kind of fed up and they might make that turn eastward. And with China and Russia and India talking about beefing up their space capabilities, this could be a very, very significant year indeed in terms of European politics. So that's it for today's news and views. I have one other announcement. I did hear from Georgianne Hughes' son. He said that Georgianne is sleeping a lot again. She's not really all that coherent. Sometimes she is, sometimes she isn't. But she still is doing okay. She does appear to have a little more energy right now. So please keep her in your prayers. I don't expect there will be any more bite shows, unfortunately, for those of you who've been asking. So that's it for my news and views this week, January 29th, 2015. This has been Joseph P. Farrell. I'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye, everybody.